Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Teaching Tips Tuesday with me, Alex Fabrega. I'm afraid that I'm coming off of being a little bit sick, so my voice might not be as exciting as usual. Today we have with us Spencer Churchill. He is a TVI O&M here at Foundation for Blind Children. How you doing today, Spencer?
Well, I'm glad to be here, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on. So today we're going to cover what is many people's, especially many school teachers' first introduction to the world of VI, and that is the FVA or Functional Vision Assessment. This is required for any student to be determined as eligible for visual impairments. How often do you need to do an FVA?
FEA is required as part of the eligibility process in conjunction with an I report every 3 years.
Okay, what are some components of the FVA?
Sure. So a functional vision assessment is kind of a conglomerate of data and information about a student that is used to A, determine eligibility, but B, really get a clear understanding of what that student's visual functioning is like and what their best learning mediums are and ways to best support that student in the classroom going forward. So some of the components that help um, piece that together are the eye report from an ophthalmologist or optometrist. Particularly, a clinical low vision evaluation is important. So, if the TBI is able to get their hands on the most recent eye report, that is key piece of information number one. Number two would be a interview with the student, and so that can look like a few different things. Maybe observing the student in their classroom environment, maybe observing them out on the playground or walking around their campus to see kind of what their visual strengths and weaknesses are, um, as well as just interviewing the student if the teacher is able to see kind of from the student's perspective what works and doesn't work currently in the classroom setting. Another helpful piece of information is gathering any feedback from the parents. So understanding kind of what that visual history has looked like and how things have progressed and changed over time, and how the student is able to to accomplish tasks around the house as well as accomplishing those maybe homework assignments or projects. Lastly, the parents are excuse me, the teachers are another key stakeholder that would allow the teacher, the TBI, to be able to gather information about what the student is or isn't accessing in the classroom. So far we have medical report, or I should say, more specifically, an I report, and then a combination of like interviews and observations from all I should say all of the important individuals in that student's daily life. So that would be the student, her or himself, the parents, and the classroom teachers. From there, the TBI is kind of equipped with this sound foundation of what the student's background is like and their strengths and weaknesses in their daily routine. And the TBI is able to conduct maybe any follow-up tests that might be helpful. So that could be things like um, testing the student's ability to read and write information at a variety of distances with a variety of light settings, and from different angles. So is the student best able to access information on the front of the classroom from the left or right side of the classroom? Should they be sitting in the front or the back? Um, should the lights be as low as possible, maybe kind of dimmed, or as bright as possible? Is a desk lamp best provided for the student? So understanding how the student can access information in any combination of settings that the student might find themselves in their educational environment is ultimately the goal of the functional vision assessment.
Excellent. So, a question I often get is what is the difference between just an eye report from a medical professional and an FVA? And from what you were saying, it seems the big difference is the people doing the eye report, are in laboratory settings. And whereas when we do our FEA, are in the classroom, in the actual learning environment, looking at how that vision is interfacing with daily tasks.
That's correct. So those medical eye reports are typically conducted in a, like you said, a laboratory setting or a very scientific way where every test is going to be conducted in the exact same way for every single student. So the lighting is always going to be the same, distance is always going to be the same. All those other variables are equal, which is helpful for all of us because then we know, okay, um, we have a good foundation of what we can perceive this student's visual strengths and weaknesses to look like. But it might not be the perfect representation of how the student is accessing information at a near or far distance in the classroom or educational environment. So that's where we come in and can really see, oh, it looks like the student's currently seated in the back left corner. I think maybe they should be placed in the front and center based on our observations of this classroom specifically.
Now, earlier on, you mentioned learning media. So the LMA, Learning Media Assessment, is kind of a component of the FEA. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Sure. So the learning medium assessment is helpful for us to understand what is the primary, secondary, and tertiary learning mediums of that student. So maybe a student is really using their vision to access the bulk of their information, but um, is growing to find that their eyes are fatiguing as they're growing through their school years and the materials becoming more complex. And they're really taking to listening to information and processing auditorily. Um, or maybe a student is kind of borderline. Should I be accessing more information in Braille through a tactile mode? So really putting the student through a combination of different reading, we'll say reading, I don't want to say reading tests, but reading worksheets to grade their accuracy and speed and overall efficiency to see if the student should be receiving um, certain materials in either a visual large print maybe way or a electronic magnification um, or auditory or tactile.
Okay. Now, that covers the majority of that testing, the FEA LMA. There is also the O&M assessment, but we won't touch on that today. Is there any other last things you want to leave us with regarding the FEA process?
I would kind of leave it off with how most FEAs are concluded, and that's typically through a recommendation list. So a set of recommendations that are used um, by the IEP team to kind of determine next steps. So wonderful. We have a nice long report of what the student's background is, what their current visual abilities are in the educational setting, what's next. So the recommendations will provide that roadmap for the IEP team. And some recommendations that you might find are like a list of accommodations that the student should have in their IEP. So things like preferential seating or desk lamp or large print books or braille materials or CCTV and so on and so on. Or maybe the recommendations would include um, a number of minutes per week or per month that the student should be receiving in their IEP. Maybe the recommendation will include further testing. So we believe that the student should be tested for cortical vision impairment and see where they're at on that scale. Or if an O&M assessment hasn't been done, that can be recommended, or maybe follow up with a medical provider if something kind of seems out of the ordinary, or if the eye reports on file are outdated. So
All right, excellent.
I would say the FEA in sum is a great opportunity for the IEP team to learn about the students' past, present, and future of their visual skills.
Okay. So you've been on before with me, so I've already asked what your favorite part of your job is. So quick, instinctual answer to this question: what's cooler, TVI or O&M?
Ooh, neither. I think they're both best. I know it's kind of a lame answer, but I've given that answer consistently over the years.
Okay.
So I've I love both just as much. O&M super fun because you get to kind of be out and about outside. TVI super fun because you get to see that immediate educational success. So
All
um,
right. Excellent diplomatic answer. All
perfect.
right.
Thanks for the time, Alex.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on another episode of Teaching Tips Tuesday. And thank you so much at home for watching another episode of Teaching Tips Tuesday. As always, if you have any topics you want to see addressed, please leave them in the comments. I will try and find an expert to talk it through, and we hope to see you next week.